In this video today, I'm going to be exploring which is better, being a funeral celebrant or a wedding celebrant. We'll look at the ease of training, the ease of getting paid work, the workload involved, the pay you might expect, and then any other noticeable differences. So let's get straight to it. Training to be a funeral celebrant does tend to be easier and more popular because, after all, most people have seen funeral celebrants work, but there are fewer people that have potentially seen wedding celebrants at work. Remember, 80% of all funerals are now officiated by celebrants, whereas in the UK, less than 20% of weddings are led by a celebrant. On the face of it, writing and delivering a funeral service may seem easier than writing a wedding ceremony, but working with the bereaved family is a lot more challenging than an engaged couple. Families often have complex relationships and grief to contend with, and so that's why funeral directors want their celebrants to be really thoroughly trained with good assessments on the practical skills so that they know and trust that they will look after their family with compassion and sensitivity and get the job done. And funeral directors increasingly are having to contend with, increased competition with direct cremations. So consequently, they want high quality celebrants who can do the job really effectively. So it's unsurprising that funeral celebrants who've been trained by sitting in a hotel room for 3 to 5 days and being talked at and are not being coached and properly assessed on their skills, then they are struggling to get work. Working with engaged couples, on the other hand, is more straightforward. They're happy, excited, and enthusiastic. You still need training, though, to know how to run an initial couple meeting efficiently and effectively, but there's less to get wrong, because if a bride or a groom-to-be don't like something that you're proposing, then they'll simply just tell you. When it comes to getting paid, getting funeral bookings is faster and more straightforward. You generally don't get booked by families directly unless they're having a direct cremation. Normally you get bookings instead from funeral directors and funeral arrangers. Funeral directors and funeral arrangers will book you if A, they believe you are well and sufficiently trained, B, if they trust that you'll do a good job, and C, that they don't have another celebrant that they would prefer to use. You'll hear some people whinge on about how the funeral celebrant industry is saturated, but it's not. It's just very competitive because it's such a great job. There are a lot of not very well trained and not very good funeral celebrants out there who suddenly expect work to fall in their laps, but it won't. Instead, with the right skills, consistently high quality teaching and one-to-one coaching, a well-trained funeral celebrant can get plenty of work. But even then, it's like with starting any new business. Even that will sometimes take time. After all, the funeral industry is recession-proof, and there is natural turnover of celebrants all the time. Yes, it may take some people longer than others to get the momentum behind their new business, but that's where advice, support, and one-to-one coaching from trainers who understand sales and marketing is really key. To be a successful funeral celebrant, you need 3 things. 1, Persistence. You need to win the trust of funeral directors and arrangers, and sometimes that will take time. 2, you need consistency, because high professional standards really matter, especially in the world where funeral directors are having to compete with cheap, nasty, direct cremations. And then 3rd is luck. Sometimes you just have to wait a little bit of time and have that opportunity where a vacancy appears at one of your local funeral directors. But if you don't have number 1 and number 2, you'll never get the 3rd. In contrast, marketing yourself as a wedding celebrant to engaged couples is completely different. The biggest mistakes I see all the time is when new celebrants have been trained by people who don't understand marketing, especially on combined funeral and wedding celebrant training courses. To learn more about these common marketing mistakes by wedding celebrants, look at the link in the video either above or down below in the description. When you get booked as a funeral celebrant, the ceremony you'll deliver is usually just in 3 weeks' time. As a wedding celebrant, however, couples will book you 6 months, a year, even 2 years in advance, so it's a longer game. So whereas you need good networking skills and persistence to get funeral bookings, with weddings it's all about your website, your social media, and listings on wedding planning platforms like Hitched and Bridebook. This means there is more an investment in your time and money to get wedding bookings in comparison to funeral bookings. But marketing yourself as a wedding celebrant can be done in the evening and at weekends, which means it's ideal to run as a side hustle alongside a full or part-time job, in contrast to marketing yourself as a funeral celebrant, which requires you to be available during the day. Once booked, the amount of time it takes to write and deliver a funeral service compared to a wedding ceremony is about the same. The difference is the intensity. A funeral service has to be written and delivered all within 3 to 4 weeks, whereas in contrast, once booked, the actual wedding ceremony writing and delivery will take place over a period of 3 or 4 months. So what this means is, if you have plenty of free time available, it feels like you're making a lot more progress as a funeral celebrant faster. Whereas if you are somebody who has to juggle other work or family commitments, then being a wedding celebrant is a lot more manageable. So how much time are we actually talking about? Well, of course, every funeral service and every wedding ceremony is going to be different, but on average, you could expect to spend about 5 hours on each. It will vary depend upon your travel time, to meetings and to the ceremony, and how much the family or the engaged couple want to write for themselves, and of course, what they want in the ceremony. And of course, when you are new, expect these things and these timings to be longer until you get experience, practiced, and more efficient. So with each funeral service or wedding ceremony taking about 5 hours of your time, how much can you expect to get paid? For funeral celebrant fees, they range from $240 to $350. Expect on average $275 in the southeast of England and less elsewhere. For weddings, the average across the country is again about £750 to £1,000, and again that range does vary depending upon not only the geography that you're in, but also it will depend upon your experience. 60% of engaged couples choose their wedding suppliers based on online reviews and testimonials. So as a result, the more experience and the more amazing reviews you get, potentially the more you can charge. In contrast, as a funeral celebrant, you'll be charging the local celebrant rate, and it doesn't matter how much experience that you might have. It could be your first or your 100th funeral. You'll probably get paid about the same. Now, I love being both a funeral and a wedding celebrant because of the variety that it brings and also the contrast that it delivers me as well in terms of rewarding work. But of course, there are fundamental differences. Both the marketing is completely different, the cash flow is very, very different. And that's why you need to be making the right choice. If you want to do both funeral and wedding celebrancy, then depending upon your circumstance will depend upon whether it's right for you to do one first rather than the other. And that's why we have two separate courses, so that people can decide for themselves which way they need to start off before then moving into the other area. And I've got lots of experience of coaching and advising people in terms of what is right for them based upon their experience. The problem with these combined courses is it delivers everything all in one go, and you'll start off delivering one aspect, and then by the time you get round doing the other aspect of celebrancy, you've probably forgotten it. I hope you've enjoyed this video and this journey with me into my local Peak District. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, ask me any questions in the comments, and if you want more resources, then there are lots of links in the description below. And also remember to subscribe and to hit the notifications icon if you want more tips, hints and inspiration on becoming a successful celebrant. I look forward to seeing you next time.